exposing myself to the world.
I think that's part of the reason why he hired me. Like that was one of the things because like I was used to talking to people and all their nonsense, and like you'll have people that will walk into the office and it starts off with this fucking deal's falling apart. I can't do this, and then 10 minutes in, it's and my wife and I are talking.
I mean, I liked you before, but your grade just went up a little bit.
Why?
Because I appreciate people that have substance.
Okay.
Like,
I get it.
I never got a degree. I spent about 3 weeks in college and was like, I don't have to come here. And then the answer was like, no. And I was like, phew, and I just disappeared and have been just piecemealing it along the way. But there's things that I've always wanted to do or thought I would be proficient at that required a degree.
Yeah.
And one of them is not therapy because I don't understand people's feelings at all.
I used to like for the first
I'm just kidding.
10 or 15 years after I'd started doing that, I would see people that I used to hang out with in high school, and everybody I hung out with in high school was like drug doing skateboarder, just, and most of them are dead. That's crazy. Like if I look through my senior year, like people I graduated with, I have maybe 2 friends that are left like alive.
We've unfortunately have reached that age where like, yeah, there's always going to be a couple of friends that passed away early in life from accidents or an unfortunate series of events. But like now we're getting to the point where like some of our friends are just kind of even dying naturally.
That's
and it's weird.
That's just going to compound it because most of it like was suicide, drugs, like because that's the background I came from. Right. So when I would see people in like from high school, like in place, just in stores and shit, and I'd be, oh, what's going on? Like, what do you do now? And I'd be like, oh, therapy. And I would just say that and then go on with the conversation. And then I talked to this one girl that I used to know from high school. And then she was walking away. She's like, well, good luck with the therapy, and walked away. And I'm like, oh no. Like I had been telling all these people that, but they probably think when I say that, the way I framed it was, I've been in therapy for like 10 years.
Yeah.
So they didn't think I did that.
Well, therapy could be a lucrative thing.
If you doing it,
yeah,
I guess.
I mean, not. I mean, as a profession, it's my perception that it could be lucrative.
It can, but I mean, you burn out so fast. Like every like romanticized thing you see on TV, on whether it's a movie or whatever, and it's the therapist that they just care so much, and they go home and they pet their chocolate lab and they eat a salad and they fall asleep and they stare at the ceiling. Like every therapist that's like that burns out like within like 5 or 6 years because you can't, especially in addiction, because it's such a revolving door of, oh my God, I got my shit together. I'm going to do this. This is great. But then 2 days later, either, oh shit, I tried to do the same amount of heroin I did before, and now I
What's that called?
Or...
The pink cloud of optimism, when someone first does that and they think that they can take on, you know what I mean? Like, is that the term? Is that
yeah. And then they usually end up like sadly dying because they try to do the same amount of drugs that they did when they went into treatment, which is like a 6-month period. And like your body's like normal now and you can't take that much, and then you die.
Oh. Yeah, so would you do other types of therapy that were not addiction based? Like if you ever were to go back to that field, like relationship counseling, stuff like that?
Oh, no way. Like I literally mentally could not do it anymore. Like
really?
At the end, I was so burned out. I was near suicidal. Like because therapy had changed so much. Like therapy used to be like, sit in room and do group therapy or do like, presentations or do like one-on-one therapy. But after COVID, a lot of places changed to this dynamic of, oh, well, you'll just do your therapy over the phone, like a telehealth thing. And that might work if like I'm calling in and go, dude, my ear hurts. Oh, well, you might have vertigo. Oh, well, let's talk about that.
Right.
It went from that to like in addiction, it's, dude, are you using cocaine? You seem like you're talking really quick today. Nope, I'm good. All right, I just have to assume so since you can't come in. And just like, totally giving them the honor system, which some of them earned, some of them have not.
Wow, I learned a lot about you today.
I know. We've only been pseudo on air for like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Are we on air?
We are. We've been on air the whole time.
5 minutes, but yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Got it. Okay.
So you were a therapist, and I'm proud of you. You changed professions. You went a whole different route. You were like, let me go into a field where I have to deal with people that don't have their shit together all day long and help them too.
No, that's it.
Except they're crying about the money they don't make.
Well, I mean, in that field, everybody was miserable that you worked with, that you were kind of working with. And even more miserable was the fellow therapists and counselors and whoever, because they usually in that field were ex addicts. So now they're ex addicts and they might be clean, but they still have like the same kind of like, shitty outlook or just like whatever like was going on with their personality that made them away anyway. And they're just clean. So you're dealing with all these like stuffy social workers and everything else. And I started doing that when I was like 21.
Right.
So I'm in a field where most of the people were twice my age. And that's why you have like no work. I'm not used to having work friends because you come from this background where for like, close to 20 years, I was in a field where I related to nobody, had no friends. And so that's just kind of how life went.
Wow.
Yeah. So then you come here and it's all of a sudden you're around people who are making the money what they want to make. They are working with who they want to work with. They don't have a boss up their ass all the time. So you're with these people that are just like genuinely happy for the most part. And it's completely like off-putting.
Yeah.
Like you're just like, you just get taken back by it. And just, yeah, I mean, it's totally different. And it was the only reason I took the job is because I knew between what I was doing and real estate, like there was going to be the 6 month to a year where I wasn't making a damn thing, and the possibility of never making anything anyway, as just an agent. But as the ATL, I didn't even know what that meant. Like, what is an assistant team lead? Like outside of Keller, that doesn't mean anything. Like if I went to Remax, I was like, I'm an assistant team lead. They're like, I don't know what the fuck that is. Like
Right.
nobody knows what that is. So I have useless business cards. I have like 1,000 business cards that say assistant team lead. If I left that like in a Starbucks, nobody knows what that is. They're like, oh great, they just throw it away. 'Cause nobody
I
knows what
like
that
you
is.
as the assistant team lead.
I'm
glad you're
thank you. I like you as the co-chair or co-chairman of the board of License to Sell.
License to sell, and soon to be nerdy talk here,
Yes.
because we're going to talk nerdy.
Is there another podcast with this name? I feel like somebody had to have stumbled across this name. There's no way we're that innovative that we're like, hey, nerdy talk.
I think
Aw.
we're both nerds, and we're a little off as individuals.
Fair.
So I think
Fair.
that there has to be another duo out there that figured that out. But it's apparently I Googled it, and I didn't find anything.
What are the odds of that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Literally nerdy talk.
Nerdy talk. Yeah. Like dirty talk.
No, that I got
Okay.
He cracked the code on that. Mhm.
So that was a wild adventure.
What was?
Your life as a therapist.
Oh yeah, that rabbit hole. Well, you did stuff before real estate too. Like
Nothing nearly as interesting.
You worked at a Starbucks. That's
My personal life was a shit show, not my professional life.
that seems like a better rabbit hole than just like you used to talk to people for a living. Like, why do you? Okay, well, number one, why do you feel it was a shit show? Like everybody, I mean, everybody.
Back into his therapist shoes.
But everybody feels like their life in some way, shape, or form is a shit show. Like whether it's like, oh, I have a great apartment and a great job and a great girlfriend, but dude, my dog, he shits on the floor all the time. Oh, I hate my life. Like everybody has like a different scenario of why they feel their life's a shit show. Why do you feel even now, like post that, your life was a shit show?
Well, now I feel pretty good, but as far as like my personal life, things have been on a very good trajectory. But I mean, like, I guess this kind of relates to like what we wanted to talk about today with like our path to fandom.
True.
But
Okay.
I had a kind of weird and non-conventional upbringing. Unconventional, non-conventional, or unconventional? Unconventional.
I mean, I think it's unconventional, but if you said non-conventional, people would still get it.
So my parents met in the 70s, and then I came around in 1978,
Mm-hmm.
the year of our Lord, in the summer of Sam, in the Bronx, when the Bronx was burning. So I was born in fire and brimstone, like the world was suffering around me.
Whoa.
Right.
Okay.
And I have had a great relationship with my parents. My parents were always good. My dad passed away. That's part of the story. But
sorry.
up until that point, it was fine.
Okay.
But I grew up in an immigrant household, and both my parents were business professionals. They ran restaurants and pizzerias, and like I was basically kind of raised by my grandparents for a majority of my life. And I didn't have any siblings. The closest thing I had to a sibling was an older cousin who's like significantly older than me, and so we were always at two different phases of our life until we got to adulthood. But like, when I'm 5 and you're 17, I'm not relevant to you.
Right.
Like you're not going to do the same things that I want to do. And I grew up in it was a 3-family house. So my grandparents were upstairs, my aunt, my uncle, and my cousin were in the middle. My mom and my dad were on the bottom.
So
But I
cool.
basically lived with my grandparents, and my grandfather owned a pizzeria in the Bronx. So we were like, my uncle was an educator in Manhattan, and he was I don't know exactly what he was, but I know that he worked in like the board of education, and like he was spoke 7 languages. Literally, was in the who's who of America at one point in his life. Like he's that type of person. So I lived in and also growing up in like an Italian American immigrant household, it was almost like I felt like I was growing up in Italy. Like I was literally in my grandparents' garden, like picking tomatoes. And the closest thing I had to friends was comic books and cartoons and action figures.
I was just gonna say, like, so because this is kind of foraying and how do we got into fandom? Like, do you feel that your upbringing, being it unconventional and everything, and like certain aspects of it, do you feel that influenced like the first kind of things you sought out, like as far as comic books or as far as cartoons or as far as like
Yeah.
action figures?
Yeah, I mean, obviously being a kid, like you like toys, like there's nothing really groundbreaking on that, right? But like I really found myself getting attached to the characters. I think although I did love watching cartoons, and although I did love watching or playing with toys, I really enjoyed comic books the most. And
Okay.
like and reading comic books and understanding them, and then I would subsequently, like, if I did have like action figures, I'd be playing out the stories and stuff like that and creating my own stories. So like it went more from, I think I enjoyed the characters more from just reading it and enjoying it. Like I was always making my own.
Hmm.
So like I wouldn't be enough to read Superman. I would grab a sketch pad and I was writing my own Superman Batman comics. And
Okay.
like instantly went to that. Like, anything I had done, I never was just consuming those things. I was always like obsessed with making more of it and finding more of it too.
Hmm.
But I think the biggest thing for me was comic books. And my dad was a comic book fan. And my dad just loved to read in general. So my dad was one of those people that like he was the 1980s equivalent to someone who was addicted to screen time, except it was novel time. Like he
Right.
always had a book with him, and anytime he had a free moment, he was like reading the book. Like he always had his thumb in the book and like reading it, like a paperback in his pocket. Literally had a paperback in his back pocket at all times. And if it wasn't comic books, it was novels, and he was just constantly reading. So that's how I started reading. I would just picking up the comic books off the floor
Right.
and just reading them. It wasn't like, hey, dad, bring me to the comic shop. Matter of
Mhm.
fact, I can't even recall a time I went to a comic book store with my dad. I didn't start doing that until my dad passed and I needed to go get more comics. And then
Right.
my grandfather started taking me to the comic shop. So I guess, and I never asked my grandfather this question while he was alive, I would imagine that like that's where my dad got it from, like going to the comic shop. Well, there wasn't
Mhm.
comic shops. Well, when my dad grew up, there wasn't comic shops. You were buying them on a newsstand.
Right.
So not comic shops were an invention of like the 80s. That was a new thing. So there was no comic shop in the 60s and 70s when he was reading. But that's the comic books I was reading,
Right.
you know? So that's kind of how my first foray into fandom started.
Okay.
And then I had kids at a young age. So my first son was born when I was 20. And then between 1999 and 2004, my wife and I, at the time, had 3 children, all sons. So, like, I got kids. I like nerdy stuff. That's all I really language. I knew how to. I like surface level like sports. I was not athletic, but like
Right.
I would watch a Yankee game. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? And I was capable enough to like throw the ball with my kid and teach him how to swing.
Right.
I never played sports on a team, but
Right.
I would play basketball with my friends, stuff like that. So I was like competent enough to get that, but it wasn't what I would love. It wasn't what I loved,
Right.
So like that and like wrestling was a big thing too.
So it was more like utilitarian than like actual like love of the game.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Oh, sorry. I was getting a phone call.
No,
Apologize,
like I
nerds.
mean,
Apologize, nerds.
my stuff never started really with comic books at all. Like I just happened to fall into a group of like, at the time nerds that liked comic books, and so I just went along with it. But like my mom worked at a place called Colmar Labs in Port Jervis,
Huh.
and she was there for 30 years. And I have this little thing she got from her job, and it's like in this little like ring case, and it's this tiny thing like this big, and it's got like a little dot of like a some kind of like gem thing, and it says like Colmar 30 years, and it's this big, and I always keep it just going because if you're in a regular fucking job for 30 years, is what you get. You get this thing, so that kind of turned me off to it. But my dad was a janitor with a sixth grade education, and my mom was a factory worker who I don't know, I think she graduated high school. I'm not really sure, but when my parents split, I was two, so it was 77, and my dad was the weekend dad guy, but it
Right.
wasn't like weekend dad like TV weekend dad. It was he would take me at Fridays, at like around 6, and bring me back like at like Saturdays around noon. So it wasn't even 24 hours like that he had me. But one of the things we used to do was we would go to there was like the video rental place in town. Like
Yeah.
at the time it was like Metro Electronics. And he would literally go in there and he would rent like 4 or 5 movies, and he would just give the guy a list, and the guy would go behind the thing and grab the movies. And every one of them was like, I mean, there was some decent ones like Friday the 13th, like, you know, the ones of their day, but a lot of them were like B horror movies, like Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, like all the holidays that just go awry. But that's where like my stuff for horror movies came in. It was just like I was just at my dad's house just watching all these like people. Like I remember there was one movie where like some guy drank Drano and they got like a car antenna through his throat, and I'm just watching it like this. Yeah, this I guess this is what kids do. And
Traumatizing.
yeah, but my mother would like you were talking about. My mother read all the time. Like she read all the time. So she would always go to the library. She would always get a shit ton of books. But she always got like not even Harlequin romance novels. She always got these just like mystery Angela Lansbury Murder She Wrote kind of books.
Yeah.
So she would wander off into the adult section, and I would go into the adult section, but to the adult section where they had like the monster books, like Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, like ghosts, like werewolves, like all this shit.
Yes.
And oddly enough, there was one of the main authors I got into is this guy Daniel Cohen, and Daniel Cohen actually lived in Port Jervis.
Get out of town.
He lived in Port Jervis, and I remember seeing that in the back of the book, going, "This can't be right. Like I live in this town, and he lives here too." But his daughter actually died. Like he made like national news. His daughter died in the Lockerbie, Scotland bombing, like that blew up the plane. Like,
Oh, wow.
His daughter was on it.
Oh, get out of
So
town.
that's where people were like, "Oh, Daniel Cohen, he's a local author." But so like that whole like genre of like cryptozoology and horror and comic books, like all kind of came to a head when you start reading comic books, and then you can incorporate it all by like Werewolf by Night and like all those things, like
Yes.
everything you're looking for, like there you can pull into the comics. I mean, back then like Methuselah, but like back then like comic books were mainly like Spider-Man, Hulk, Iron Man. Like there wasn't like a lot of horror genre comics.
Well, that's the funniest thing. My first like real exposure to comic books wasn't necessarily superhero stuff. My dad did read superhero stuff, and I got into it. But I was reading Archie. I was reading.
Right.
I was reading like some of it was supernatural horror stuff. So like Haunted Tank, Weird War.
What is Haunted Tank?
You never read the Haunted Tank?
Don't treat me like this.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I've never
Haunted
read
Tank,
Tank.
Weird War, Phantom Stranger,
Phantom Stranger.
Unknown Soldier.
Yep.
Stuff like that. I was reading My dad loved like horror comic books and stuff like that, and stuff that was like there was a lot of like Sergeant Rock, Sergeant Fury and the Howling Commandos.
Nice.
So there was a lot of military stuff, which was really popular in like the 70s. Like we're still dealing with like Vietnam era and post World War II era, comic book storytelling. So he did read comic books, but it was generally speaking, most of it was Superman, Batman, and then Spider-Man, some Hulk. But I didn't really start diving into superheroes until I started going to the comic shop. And that's when we're talking now late 80s, early 90s. So we're talking X-Men.
Yep.
Height of X-Men. So, and I was definitely a huge Marvel kid. Marvel was way more, although I did some of the most impactful comic books that I read as a kid that I probably didn't necessarily understand why they were so good was a lot of early like Alan Moore, Frank Miller, Batman, Superman stuff. I didn't even know who they were. I was just reading the stories.
Right.
I wasn't comprehending. That being said, like I gravitated more towards Marvel, and Marvel definitely ruled the 80s and the 90s. So I don't know if that was just because what was on the newsstands or the characters just seemed lighter and brighter to me. But I liked one of the things I liked the most was Peter Parker, the characterization of Peter Parker and Spider-Man in the 80s and 90s. Like, it's not what he is now. The movies have changed him. Like, even the Raimi movies changed him into this aw shucks, like, I'm just a do-gooder type thing. Like,
Right.
Peter Parker was a douchebag.
Oh, initially?
Yeah, in the 80s and the 90s, he was hot-headed, he was hot-tempered, he would constantly like argue with MJ, like always fighting with like Aunt May. Like, he was kind of, he's like him and Jay Jonah would always like go at it, and
Right.
like he always was able to, obviously be heroic in the end and always have self-control, which is always like, that's his main characteristic. Is like Spider-Man has control. Like but he was like really like salty. And I always like loved that about it.
Right.
And then I guess through Spider-Man is when I really started getting exposed to the other characters in the Marvel universe and just kind of like lived in that world for a long time. X-Men obviously was just an amazing book, and like X-Men was also like kind of a little horny. Like, the X-Men was like John Byrne and Chris Claremont. They were a little horny, and like when you're like a preteen kid, you're kind of loving the X-Men. Like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, definitely a lot of hormones running there.
And then you have the era of McFarlane coming out, and then you're seeing MJ
Yeah,
done by
running around.
McFarlane. You're
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the whole. We'll have to do like the whole Image mid-90s thing one day. We'll talk about that when we.
But it was perfect with puberty. I mean, you go like, from the initial comic books, and then he's like Eric Larson, I guess, to a certain degree, but McFarlane was like,
Jim Lee,
mm,
Rogue, and Psylocke. You just had a scantily clad ninja on your team for like no apparent reason.
dude, those were so like impractical outfits. Like, they're so impractical. The Baroness, goddess of all goddesses, the Baroness had a practical outfit.
Yeah,
Her, but I mean, Psylocke, like that's like, it's so strappy.
yeah, it was
so
very strappy. Strappy for no reason.
Strappy.
Also, how do you put those straps on? Like, how do they affix to you?
And it's got to take forever. Like, you're like, oh, look, the apocalypse is on his way. All right.
Right. Are they zippered on? Are they glued on? Like, there's no seams on them.
There isn't any seams. It's
Like I get that superhero, you have to always suspend the disbelief here with superheroes and their costumes, right?
right.
But like, even when you try to translate that into like live action, it's just like, you know,
well, even
how does that work?
in Greece, where like, you heard Olivia Newton-John had to get sewn into her pants, and those are just pants. Now it's this thing, like that. I wear like a couple outfits with suspenders, and I know like sometimes you're stepping through the pant leg and the suspenders under it and wrapped. Like,
Right.
so I don't even know what like just a pile of straps and a katana looks like.
Right. It looks like the Psylocke's bedroom floor. That's what it looks like. So, so your main
But I
fandom
digress.
is your main fandom's scary movies, horror
Well,
movies.
I mean, I guess so. Like, it was scary movies. Like, comic books were a thing my friends did, and it became like, I think, a matter of like,
You also
you're
couldn't
just,
avoid comics in the 80s and 90s. As a
no,
kid.
as
a
and that's
male,
when-
at least,
yeah, and
then.
that's when Batman like was just coming out, like not coming out, but like coming out again in the Tim Burton reimagining.
Well, 1989 Batman was like a cultural event.
Yeah, and I, as like a huge Batman fan, didn't know enough to like hate that movie. Like, I'd say, like, not the Michael Keaton version of it, but once Tim Burton got a hold of it, and it was oh god.
I digress. I actually like Tim Burton's version of it because you got to understand, like, as much as I like, okay, stay with me here. I get like Tim Burton's a little wacky. I like the wackiness of Tim Burton. And then some people didn't love the marriage of that and Batman, right? Because
Yes.
but when you watch, I challenge you to go watch those two Tim Burton movies, but watch them and just understand the whole entire scope of it, like the fantastical nature of it, the unbelievable like suspense of disbelief of just like, you have the cat, the bat, and the bird in the second one. You have the Joker. You have like goons dressed up like that. Like the concept of Gotham and the concept of the people around it, and how extraordinarily insane that is, actually gives you a context where a billionaire playboy would dress up as a bat and go and try to stop them. Because when you, as much as I love the Christopher Nolan ones,
Mm-hmm.
As much as I love what Zack Snyder did, I'm a fan of Batfleck. I'm pro Batfleck. I don't care what anybody says. Judge
Right.
me in the comments. The more you make Batman realistic,
Mm-hmm.
the more odd it is to see him exist. And if
Definitely.
you right, and I didn't notice that, and I love the Robert Pattinson version of that movie. That's such a great movie.
Mm-hmm.
But like when he walks into the crime scene and all the cops are surrounded by him, it never felt more dorky for a guy to be dressed up as a bat in any of the movies than that scene. Like it's
Okay.
like it was hard for me not to see it.
Right.
It was hard for me to suspend the disbelief. Where it was less hard for me to comprehend Batman existing in Batman Returns fighting penguins in the sewer. Like that makes sense the world is so crazy
Right.
and things are so ridiculous that yeah, I could totally buy that this guy's running around with bat ears and trying to stop people.
Right.
Where like if I'm a cop and some guy dressed up like this is really what we're doing. We're really letting this guy in here.
Right.
Like, is it like nobody stopped him? Nobody said like this is actually completely against police protocol. Like,
I guess I can understand that and
I'm the biggest comic defender, but I can also play both sides. I could beat things up, and I can pick them apart, and I can.
But that's
defend
the
them.
beauty of debate because you have to be able to debate both sides at certain times.
Right.
I had to watch this show last night, and I forget what it's called. I forget what it's called because that's how much it didn't matter. But it's that one with Caitlin Olsen where she plays like, look, I'm the most brainiest chick in the room, but also I am a chick janitor. But I help the cops solve all these things. But it really like that show. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like it's like a cop show, and she helps the cops like solve these unsolvable crimes because she's so smart. But she's like a maid.
Isn't it with the chick from Always Sunny?
Yeah.
I know.
That one.
I know what show you're talking about. I don't know what it is.
But it's the same exact concept. Like the
Right.
cops are sitting there like, oh my god, they're gonna blow up the city. What are we gonna do? And then the maid wanders in like a Goodwill Hunting, like, oh well, you didn't look at this, and look, he chews this kind of gum, and this is how you're gonna get. It's the same thing.
Yeah, they did one. I loved it actually. It was one of the Arquette sisters, right? Well, she was like a medium. The show was called Medium.
Mm-hmm.
Like she worked with a cop and he solved crimes, but she's like a medium, like 100%. Like
Like
I get it.
This
Like
is what we're doing now. Like we're just
you're
gonna
in
let the maid
you're in
do
a
this?
world, but like also like when the setting is so practical,
Right.
it makes Batman seem so ridiculous.
True. I did.
So it makes me appreciate those two movies more than I have in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And damn, Tim Burton's a good movie maker, man. Just the practical effects, the scenery, the music, like that guy. I did not appreciate it as much as I should have as a young person.
Mm-hmm.
I actually disliked those movies when I was younger. Because I felt like they didn't feel like Batman to me.
Right.
Because the one thing that bothered me about it is Batman's a detective.
Mm-hmm.
Now the Batman, he's a detective in it, and now I'm like, oh, this is a little weird. So you just can't make me fucking happy. I'm part of the problem.
Right.
You know,
I
it's just
get-
the way it is.
It's not that like okay. So I even went like Tim Burton is a great filmmaker, and we even went to the Tim Burton thing they had at the MoMA where like they have like it's kind of like a display of like all the stuff he did as a kid when he was in film school.
Yeah.
and it has like Sweeney Todd's razors and like all
Right,
that shit.
great movie.
But with that, like you with Tim Burton, you know what you're getting. Like
Right.
you know what's gonna happen. So it's one of those things where like let's say like you were like a diehard Nightmare on Elm Street fan. You're like, yeah, I love every bit of it. I love the lore. I love everything. And all of a sudden you're like, you read on something like Tim Burton to do a Nightmare on Elm Street. You're like,
Yeah,
that one. He's gonna do that one.
That wouldn't
Did
make
he
it.
have
That
to
would
do
not.
that one.
I do think when you have I think we're getting into movie making now, right? So I think you have journeyman directors, right, that can change their tone.
Mm-hmm.
Tim is not one of those
No.
people. Like he wants to do things the way he wants to do things. So I think that yes, he should select certain projects
Right.
that would take advantage of his storytelling skill.
Yes.
Like they were going to do the Superman movie with him, which thank God they didn't, because it would have been awful. Like Superman's not. That was the Nicolas Cage.
Awful.
There was a Nicolas Cage Superman movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was supposed to come out.
Uh-huh.
We should do that. Greatest. But no, at some point we should have a segment called Greatest Movie Never, about movies that were supposed to come out that never came out that could have been awesome.
Oh, we could do.
Instead of greatest movie ever, greatest movie never. I'm sure it's somebody.
I would.
That has to be another podcast name, right? I didn't just think of that.
Look, nobody thought of Nerdy Talk, so I give them no credit now.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
should have been top of their list. That should have been right there, front of mind.
Yeah. Like, who's the director that did all the Mad Maxes? He's a genius. George.
Mm-hmm. I know who you mean.
Oh my gosh. George Martin keeps coming to mind, but it's not George Martin because he's the writer of Game of Thrones. I mean, you would say he's a writer, but he hasn't written the 5th book in 17 years, but it's okay. Or the 6th book.
He's a recluse. That's what it is.
George Miller. Thank
Yes.
you. George Miller was supposed to do a Justice League movie.
That would have been fantastic.
That would have been fantastic.
That is true. And what are your thoughts on, since we're going down this whole like quick? I'm seeing all the coming attractions for the He-Man movie.
I love He-Man. It's one of my favorite things as a kid to collect.
Mm-hmm.
I like it visually, aesthetically. I don't know why Hollywood's obsessed with trying to give Jared Leto things. Why wouldn't you just have Mark? Why wouldn't you just have Mark Hamill do the voice? He does the voice in the animated series.
Mm-hmm.
Just have Mark Hamill do it. I don't know why there's this like mental block in Hollywood where they just never ever access the comics or the animated series and the talent that it takes and that the talent that's there. They did it obviously with Transformers with Peter Cullen and for Wells.
Right.
No, what's his name? Who does the voice for Megatron? Oh my God, he does the voice for
I just saw this
everybody,
yesterday.
every comic. Frank, can you look it up for me? Voice for Megatron. They did it with that, right? Like that would have been dumb. That would have been if you don't have Peter Cullen do the voice of Optimus Prime and Frank Welker. Other people have done the voice for Optimus Prime in other animated series things, which is okay. I get it. But why would you not have Mark Hamill just do the voice? He isn't the original voice of Skeletor, but he's the voice of Skeletor in the newer Netflix series, which is great. It's fantastic because he does like a blend of like the old school whiny weird Skeletor and makes him more menacing.
Right.
But like, why even cast Jared Leto? It's not even he's not a voice actor. You're not using his likeness. It's Skeletor.
Yeah. You wouldn't know.
He doesn't have any credibility. All he does is make you go, oh. And I don't even know Jared Leto. Like, I'm not trying to pick on him, but like, he hasn't really done anything worth. He's been overly criticized, and I actually can defend his Joker, and can make an argument that it was good for that movie.
Right.
Right. But, he's just like box office poison. Yeah. So that makes me concerned that the curse of Jared Leto is going to follow this movie. I hope that it's fun. I am optimistic because the person that directing it is the guy who did Bumblebee. Mm-hmm. Right? Or Bumblebee. And he had a good way of like, I thought Bumblebee was the best Transformers movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I just said really, but now that I really think
Transformers 1 was great, and then Bumblebee was probably the best one after that.
I think I am so shallow and superficial. When I saw like that Transformers movies were coming out, I'm like, oh my God, this is gonna be great. And like that, but then like seeing the robots in themselves, I'm like, they look complicated.
It's very abstract. You can't really follow where they're doing. Like their motion's weird. Like and the camera angles. I love Michael Bay as a director. He's actually, I think, very underappreciated for his visual stylings. Mm-hmm. But between the character designs, in the way he liked to shoot the movie, it's very hard to follow. And then the story's convoluted, just as convoluted as the characters looks.
Right.
So like but who cares? We're talking. Then you're like, okay, we're talking about a movie version of a kid's cartoon from the '80s. So like, stop overthinking it. Like, just enjoy it. Right. But that being said, like even just like action wise, really the first one was goodish. The other were not great. Right. They got progressively worse as they went on. Somehow shoehorned Mark Wahlberg into them. And then Bumblebee I thought was good. And I really liked the Rise of the Beast one that came out. I thought that was good. There was some subtle things that they could have changed and made it actually great. That they kind of missed an opportunity on a couple things in my opinion. But and then that most recent one, the animated one, Transformers 1, was awesome. And nobody went to go see it. and they were shooting for that. They were shooting that for that Spider-Man Spider-Verse audience, you know, and they didn't translate. I think that trailers made it look too much like a kids movie,
Right.
you know. So it was just little kids movie, I should say. Obviously, clearly Transformers is a kids movie, but I am cautiously optimistic. I like the cast aside from Jared Leto.
Right.
I don't know why I haven't seen Orko in any of the trailers. If there's no Orko in this movie, I'm gonna be annoyed.
Yeah, I haven't seen Orko. I'm thinking they might wait because, of course, it's gonna have a sequel. They might wait for the sequel to bring out the evil horde. That's what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for Hordak. I'm waiting for like that's what Alison Brie is evil in. Of course, is going to be. Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
that's headcanon right there. And that's fan service.
Yeah, that's.
Thank you. Thank you for whoever decided to cast Alison Brie as evil in.
Yeah, but I'm thinking like the evil horde and other kind of
and
characters.
I can't think of her name, but whoever got cast as Tila was from Riverdale.
Really?
Yeah, the Riverdale TV show that on CW. That was actually pretty interesting for a couple seasons. I didn't stick with it, but the first couple of seasons of Riverdale were actually pretty kind of fun. They're murder mysteries.
Like Hardy Boys kind of thing?
They're like Hardy Boys murder mysteries, but like with a contemporary edge to it, like almost like a Desperate Housewives attitude, but with the Archie characters and like Jughead and Archie and Veronica and Betty. It's a little adult. Like, it's definitely not Archie for the kids, but Archie is an Archie for the kids if you've read Archie. Like, there's a lot of implied.
Yeah, and the whole thing was like between Betty and Veronica. Dude, is Veronica all the way? Betty, come on.
I think after you watch the first couple seasons of Riverdale, you may change your mind on Betty. Let's just leave it at that.
Really?
You might want to give it a watch.
It gets a little blue.
It gets a little blue.
It's a little blue.
It gets a little blue.
Yeah,
but Masters of the Universe I'm gonna watch. I'm a shill. See, I'm part of the problem too. Like sometimes when like there's things that are just, I just watched the new Red Sonja movie that came out in 2025.
I did not even know that existed.
You shouldn't. You shouldn't. You shouldn't know that it exists, and you shouldn't give it the time of day.
That bad?
It is so bad.
Was it bad because it didn't follow lore, or was it bad just because the direction they took it in was just like...
I'd be lying if I said I was a devout Red Sonja fan.
Mm-hmm.
I know who Red Sonja is, and I enjoy Red Sonja's appearance in things when Conan's around.
Got it.
And I'm not even that much of a like... That's a book series that I would love to start to read. The Conan book series are supposed to be phenomenal, but from what I'm told, there's like 50 of them.
Yeah, it's an undertaking.
Yeah. So between that, I want to read that. I want to read Dune, and I want to read one of my favorite fictional characters. I've read like the first 8 novels of it, but there's literally 40 of them. There's a Dungeons and Dragons character called Drist. It was written by R.A. Salvatore. It's a dark elf. I know. We're getting nerdy. We're getting nerdy.
Not just an elf.
It's dark elf.
A dark elf.
Yeah, from the Underdark.
I absolutely love how you got more excited when you said the Underdark. Like it went from like dark elf.
Well, so he comes from a race of dark elves that are bad.
Okay.
He's actually a good person, and he's an outcast amongst his people because he wants to do good. So he's a rebel.
He's like Finn in Star Wars.
Yeah, better, like way better.
Okay.
Yeah. Boy, was that an underused character, huh?
What?
They just forgot they created Finn after the first movie.
Dude, maybe
we're everywhere. We're going everywhere.
I was just gonna say, see, this is why we have to focus because we have now. But I think the original plot we started with was like what got you into fandom and everything, and I think we followed that. We followed that to a certain degree. We
did.
That.
We did. All right, let's do a couple of things. What was your go-to action figure as a kid?
Oh shit! Go to action figure.
Yeah, like a pocket figure, like somebody that went with you on car rides.
Oh. I think it was Storm Shadow, but it was the updated Storm Shadow, not like the original like roundy headed one.
Yeah,
it was the one
Storm Shadow version 2 with the camo.
And the gray.
One of the greatest action figures ever. He was one of my pocket Joes.
Yep. So he would be my pocket Joe. I mean, some of the He-Man guys originally, but like they were embarrassing like that. Like Fisto, you like, all right. Fisto. But like,
Fisto was sus. Fisto was sus.
yeah.
None of
He had
my,
his stuff.
I do love He-Man. I enjoyed He-Man. I don't remember. Actually, I think my favorite thing about He-Man was Battle Cat. I loved Battle Cat.
Dude, Cringer turning into Battle Cat.
Battle
that
Cat
was the
came with
ish.
me to places. But my Return of the Jedi, Luke Skywalker,
Okay, the completely black one, black.
completely
hand, like
black one with the
Mhm.
cloak. And oddly enough, one of my favorite guys that I remember dragging around was Superpowers Green Lantern. I loved my Superpowers Green Lantern.
Hmm.
I'm not even that big of a Green Lantern guy. I like Hal Jordan, but like I also was it was just a cool toy. But that Superpowers line was sick. One of my Pocket Joe was probably version 2 Storm Shadow.
Okay.
He was a great figure. He had the claw.
He did like the.
Yeah. And speaking of claws, yeah, I had Secret Wars. My Secret Wars, it made me think of Secret Wars toys, which one of my pocket figures wasn't Wolverine, but the claws made me think of Wolverine. My Black Suit Spider-Man Secret Wars action figure. That thing went everywhere with me.
And he just had the hands that were like this.
Yeah.
Like the
Well, you only need the C hand. You really only need that.
for Spider-Man.
We need it for everything. Like now with action figures, that you get 75 different hands with every toy, and there's like a fist, there's like a rock and roll, there's like you just need like I don't need this. I don't need 17 different hands. Like, why do we have all these different hands?
Right.
Finger pointing. Like, why do we have a judgmental finger pointing action feature?
What? Well, when they had Venom come out for that, and it was the Eddie Brock one. It was the one where he had like the blonde buzz cut, but he had the Venom head you could put over top of
You're
it.
talking about the 90s Toy Biz.
I think so. Yeah.
That was when the Spider-Man cartoon was coming out.
Yeah, and they made the head.
No, the 80s one was the
huge.
Secret Wars one. You remember those? They all had basically the same body sculpt, and they
Right,
were just
had
painted
the,
different. Yeah, they had 2 points of articulation. Just about everybody had the same body sculpt. There was no female characters in the line.
True.
There was a couple of subtle differences, but everybody had like a different head.
Yeah.
So like Captain America was just a different painted version of Daredevil.
And Spider-Man was just like, I mean, he was probably the easiest one to make because it's like
Well, they had
White,
Spider-Man and
white,
Black Spider-Man,
white,
Yeah.
white, done.
but Black Suit Spider-Man was the shit.
Did-
We're talking about before Venom became a thing, when he got
Right.
the costume from
The
Secret
symbiote,
Wars
right?
and was going around town as Black Suit Spider-Man.
Dude, oh my god, I got so much flack for this. When they had, was it Topher Grace that played Batman? Or, no, Batman played Spider-Man, like the original Venom.
Yes.
Dude, I loved what he did with that. I loved that he was so dorky and you knew it was Topher Grace and you're watching it and where he was just like, I like being bad. It makes me happy. You're like, you go Topher Grace. Like I wanted him to become like this evil incarnate and
Yeah.
everybody just hated on it to the point where they're just like, we can't even look at this anymore.
Yeah, I feel like Sam Raimi repeated history with Venom because, like, one of the reasons why Venom is such a popular character is because after Todd McFarlane left Spider-Man, Eric Larson took over and he hated Venom and he hated drawing Venom. So he actually was the one that made Venom look ridiculous, like with the tongue slapping everywhere.
Yeah.
The Todd McFarlane version of Venom isn't like he's demonic and monstrous and has the teeth.
Right.
But like the silly version of Venom with like I want to eat your brains and like all this stuff, like that comes from Eric Larson's run because he hated drawing it, so he just did it to piss off everybody. Or so I'm told. I don't know Eric Larson, so this is all hearsay. But I've read in interviews.
Right.
Sam Raimi was not excited about Venom being included in that movie.
Well,
He did not want Venom to be included. He
Eric-
did not want the congestion of all the villains. He wanted to focus on Sandman.
All right, and Eric Larson was a ruiner. Like when you got used to Tom McFarlane, and like McFarlane changed the game as far as like drawing goes. You
Yeah.
just saw this, you're like, oh my god, what is this? And then all of a sudden Larson came out, and you're like, this guy kind of draws like McFarlane, but everything's pointy and scary and like
Yeah,
like,
Eric Larson was goodish. I can appreciate the fact that he's still publishing Savage Dragon. It's up to like 305,000 comics.
right.
That's pretty long running.
It yes.
I don't know who reads it. I don't know how many copies he sells a month.
That might be a
Yeah.
a labor of love at this point.
Yeah, I'm sure it has its hardcore fandom, but even like Spawn still comes out. I know they've struggled with sales recently, but they're actually just Matt Rosenberg is a really popular writer.
Right.
He just started taking over writing chores of it. So it's almost like they're not relaunching it with a number one, but they're saying like this is a good jump off point for Spawn. New people who wanted to always get into Spawn because they're up to like issue 287. It's like there's like certain like it's the closest akin to like certain long running mangas
Yeah.
where it's like there's 1,000 issues of this. Where do I begin reading? Like, I'm 50 years old.
50. I can't do this. I remember being in a comic book store. Actually, it was the one in Middletown, and it was just like it's like the size of this room. And the guy was behind the counter, and I remember seeing a copy of Amazing Spider-Man 298, like first appearance of Chance, first McFarlane, and I'm looking at it, and it's $25.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, "There's no way. Like, is it
Yeah.
missing half the comic?" Like, and I'm like, "Can I see that?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure." And he gives it to me. I'm like, and being the idiot I am, like, "Do you know what this is?" He's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "This is the first appearance of this is for Todd McFarlane's first comic." And so he looks it up, and then he takes the sticker off and he puts like $100 on it, and then puts it back up.
You
It's like-
dumbass. That's so funny. You're talking about the original place in Middletown, not the current place, right?
Yeah.
My first experience with paying more than cover price for a comic was there.
Right.
I never bought back issues. I wasn't a back issue guy.
Right.
And at the time, I was only reading new comics. And I wasn't a comic collector. I was a comic reader. And I used to have like a little chip on my shoulder about that when I was younger. Like I hated the whole comic collecting boom that happened in the 90s. And like I had friends that were like buying comic books thinking that they were like an investment.
Right.
And then they were like, we're reading them. And I'd want to be like, yo, did you read X-Force? And they're like, no. And I was like, you're useless. I don't want to be friends with you anymore. Good friends should not let other friends read X-Force #1 because it was not that great. But again, I digress. So there was this comic book that came out called The Darkness. You know The Darkness?
Just your hand is blocking your face.
I do not.
The Darkness. Right? So it was in the 90s boom. It was a horror comic book. It was published by Top Cow / Image.
Mm-hmm.
It was written by Garth Ennis, who was a very famous writer, did like Preacher,
Mm-hmm.
did a lot of Punisher.
Right.
And then drawn by one of my favorite artists, Mark Silvestri. And it came out, and this is the first time that I've ever seen this in a local comic book shop. It was the release day for the book, but they had taken the issue ones and they had marked them up to like $10. So they were like cover price was like $2.
Right.
And I was pissed. I wanted that comic, and I spent $10 on that Darkness #1, which is probably worth about 17 cents now.
And I still harbor it to this
And I
day.
still harbor it to this day. And those people went out of business at some point, and I hope they don't ever start a comic book shop again. Hey, I'm all about LCSs making money, and I know that sometimes you got to do what you got to do when a book is hot. But
Right.
like, if you're a regular comic book subscriber and you come to a shop and your #1s are coming out, like you should at least get a week to pick it up at newsstand price.
Right.
You know, before you start marking it up. It was the day it came out. It wasn't even like an incentive cover.
Right.
You know?
Do you remember your first comic book?
First comic book I ever read, or first comic book I ever owned.
First comic book you ever owned?
I don't recall the issues, but I know it was some late 80s Iron Man comics. I was reading that because I remember I used to go to my stepdad's parents' house in Cornwall when I was a kid on the weekend. And I used to walk into town and there was a deli, and this deli had comics on the newsstand.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to buy comics there. And I used to read Iron Man because I think it was the only thing available.
Okay.
They were good comics too. And then Iron Man was actually wound up being one of my first favorite characters. Apparently, I was the only one because nobody liked Iron Man until the Iron Man movie came out.
True.
But that was it. The first comic book I ever read was my favorite comic book of all time was Alan Moore's Superman Annual. I believe it's called The Man Who Has Everything, or I can't remember the name of the story. Superman Annual, Alan Moore. Just Google it. So what happens is, you want a spoiler? I'm going to tell you about this comic.
Okay.
I must have read this. This book came out probably like in 88. So I'm like 10, 11 years old reading this.
Right.
It was one of my dad's comics, so it was sitting on the floor. And it's written by Alan Moore. The Man Who Knows Everything. Written by Alan Moore, drawn by Dave Gibbons, aka the people that did The Watchmen, right? You know, the same creative team. And the story takes place at Superman's birthday. Batman, Robin, Jason Todd at the time, and Wonder Woman are planning to go to the Fortress of Solitude to surprise him and give him birthday presents. They go there, and Superman's in a catatonic state with this giant bloom rose on his chest, and they can't get it off. And he's like totally frozen. They don't know what's going on. What's happening is that flower on his chest sends like mentally. You go to like this imaginary dream world, but what it does is it puts you in a place where you think this is what your reality is, and it gives you your hopes and dreams of what you've ever wanted. So the story takes place. Krypton never exploded. Superman's living on Krypton. He's an adult. He has a wife. He has children. He has a thriving life. Everything is good. Like he has an amazing life. Like everybody's happy. The sun is shining. But throughout the story, there's two stories. There's what's happening on Earth and what's happening in Superman's brain.
Right.
So as the story goes on, Superman's like, something is just not right. Like it's like the Matrix, where they're like, they said the first version of the Matrix people rejected. So he's like, there's no way everything's this good, and he's starting to like kind of figure it out while it's happening. Subsequently, one of my favorite Superman villains, a guy named Mongol. You know who Mongol is? He at the time was one of Superman's like main villains. He had put this on him because he wanted to destroy. He basically, that's one way to destroy Superman is by making him catatonic, right? Like he can't fight you if he's,
Right.
Batman, Wonder Woman, and Robin realize it's Mongol. He's like Superman level strong, so Wonder Woman can't really even kind of match him. So like the three of them are trying to do everything they can to not be killed by Mongol and try to figure out how to get this thing off of Superman at the same time. So they're destroying this Fortress of Solitude. They're getting punched through walls. Like this action, Batman and Robin don't even like really. They're doing everything they can to try to like be useful. Wonder Woman's pretty much carrying the load, like with the fisticuffs and stuff like that. So at some point, they figure out how to get it off of him. Robin goes and is able to, I can't remember if it's Batman. Batman actually gets it off of him, and then it actually latches itself onto Batman. So Batman goes into like a world where his parents are never killed, right? They don't really go into that story, but they just kind of show that happen. But as that's happening, while the struggle's going on and they're trying to remove this thing in Superman's brain, Krypton starts to explode. So it's like the history starts over again. Like they're trying to figure out like what's happening. Superman's trying to save his family. And as it's happening, Superman also comes to the realization that this is not real. And his family's like, his kids are begging him to like save them. And he like has to sit there with his children. Now, mind you, this is not necessarily a dream. This like really happened to Superman. It's not a dream. It's as if like you woke up tomorrow and everything you've experienced that we talked about today, you realize like never happened.
Oh, okay.
So all the people you loved, your children, your wife, they don't exist. Right? That being said, not only does that happen, the people in that existence are talking to you. Like, so not only did he have to wake up and realize that wasn't real, he had to like tell his kid that he's sorry and like everything's going to be okay, because that kid believed it was real.
Right.
You know what I mean? The kid in that dream. So like he wakes up from this and like, just think about it. Like your whole life is destroyed. He didn't recall being Superman. Like, and then he goes back to this world and has memories of both things now. So he literally lived an entire life with family and children in this other world, in this microcosm, and then wakes up and he is fucking pissed. Like he literally just had to watch his son die. And then shreds Mongol. Like they go like at it. Like, I mean, like they wind up, they're beating the piss out of each other. At that point, I had never seen Superman other than like a lot of the Superman comic books I read were like a lot of like Bronze Age Superman, and like where like everything was Adam Westy. A lot of like, you know, stuff.
Right.
You know, so like this is the first time I've ever seen like Superman be like violent. And people talk about like Man of Steel, like that's the book that Zack Snyder read when he's like, I know what Superman can do. Like, and they were just and they're two unstoppable forces, like one a movable object versus an unstoppable force. Like Mongol's just that strong. They eventually, the way they defeat him was they wind up getting it off of Batman and actually putting it on Mongol. Like that's how they wind up defeating him. And then you don't realize that as a reader. What happens is Mongol starts winning, and you're like, oh my god, he just like vaporizes Robin.
But
And then you realize he's like,
It's
all of a
in
sudden
his
he's sitting
brain.
there, and like he's sitting on a throne of skulls, like holding like Superman's spine, as a spear, like, and you're like, and then you see him, he's in the catatonic state, and he's got the thing on
right.
him. And there's another really sweet part too, where Batman actually synthesized a flower from Krypton. He was able to figure out this like individual. He called it the Krypton, not from Krypton, but there was this extinct flower that he was able to like find the DNA of it, grow it, synthesize it, and it gets like crushed and destroyed in the fight.
Right.
And he's like, I had made this for you. I call it the Krypton. It's a new flower species that I'm gonna like introduce to the world. Like, and it kind of like the juxtaposition of like Krypton dying and like this flower being destroyed. You know what I mean? Like it was awesome. Like it was just an awesome story. I read it when I was like 10. Had just loved the fight scenes. Didn't really understand all the other subtext. But then as I got older and like had kids and stuff like that, I'm like, imagine like how angry. Like I realized like how angry Superman was in that moment. Like after having a family, like it didn't sit with me until I got older. So that's my favorite comic book ever. Yeah, it's an amazing story. It's a one shot from beginning to end, and actually, it's the only comic book I have graded. Somebody bought it for me. I have multiple copies of it, so I can always read it and access it.
Right.
I would never grade my only copy of it because I think putting things into a sealable tomb when it's art is almost like it's almost a disrespect. It's hard,
True.
because those books are degradable. So it's like, in some instances, I'm like, I want to preserve it so it doesn't degrade. But then like the art and the story is actually the cover is not what is precious about it. It's the story inside of it that you enjoy that's precious about it, not necessarily the having of the book, right? So I have this weird thing about grading in comics like that I don't have against other things, because like a baseball card's a baseball card. You grade it, you see both sides. Who gives crap? But a comic book, it's like the story's the gift.
And a lot of people are against grading because like I could sit here and like if I had a comic book that I felt was worth like, $500 and you felt it was worth $500 and I'm putting it on eBay and you're going to pay me $500 for it. And I go, man, you know what would make this better? If I got it graded. And all of a sudden I send it away to get it graded and I get it back and it's graded instead of like a 10, it's like a graded a 7 and you're like, 7? I'll give you $100 for it. God damn it. Like some people like, and yeah, I get it.
All done.
I gotta swap the battery.
No, I gotta be in Newburgh by 1:00 anyway. So, well, listen, man, this was our first ever
This was our first ever
chat about the nerdy talks. We're gonna try to do more.
We're gonna succeed in doing more.
We have no idea what to talk about, so what we're gonna do is like when we post this, how we post this, and where we post this, I don't know yet. But in the comments of that thing, I'm gonna ask people to be like, what do they want Ryan and Vinny to talk about? And my personal life is not one of them, because we already know this. I don't want to send Ryan back into the trauma of being a therapist for 20 years.
God, that was great.
Because this is clearly the happiest version of him. So let's try to keep it nerdy related.
He agreed.
Alrighty, cool.
All right.
Bye.
Au revoir.
Talk to you soon, nerds.